Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining again. Two episodes like before a week. That's crazy.
I know, in such a crazy time, especially with the Oscars that just happened, and I know some people asked what was going to be our take on it. So here we are, giving you what you asked for.
We have a lot to say, but to start off, Jonathan, are you drinking anything interesting or?
Oh, you know what? If people are in New York, you are getting the struggle of this change of weather. So I have some OJ in my cup today to try to get the vitamin C. How about you, Brittany?
I have water in my big ass hydro jug. My skin has been so dry because of it. Like I will, and mind you, I'm somebody with oily skin too. So when I wake up in the morning and my skin feels like sandpaper, it's like insane. I'm like my skin, my lips, everything is just so dry. So I'm just trying to like hydrate as much as I can. I know it was beautiful like Friday, Saturday,
Oh, yeah.
and then today or yesterday I went out. I'm like, why do I need a coat? Like it that's the whole what is it, false spring, full spring, whatever. So if you
Yeah.
are in New York, we feel your pain.
Yeah, and hopefully we're praying. We're getting back and closer to more spring weather, eventually the summer. So we're there, step by step.
Right, and with spring also comes the end of award show season, and we closed out the season with the 97th annual Oscars last night. Jonathan, overall, what were your thoughts on the night?
Oh, my thoughts were first from like red carpet, a lot of good moments. A lot of people brought it. I feel like it had been building up to this moment. So I feel like that was amazing. The award show itself always feels long. I feel like I said that last time too. So again, it felt long, but a lot of surprises, a lot of snubs were continued. So I feel like that thing kept it interesting, and the performances as well kept it interesting for me. That was my overall take on it. So I think surprises, fashionable, just the Oscars again. But yeah, how about you, Brittany? What are your thoughts?
Like you, I kind of prefer the red carpet over the actual show. Every year when it comes to the Oscars, like I will sit down and I'll watch the Oscars or I'll have it playing. But I'm just somebody that I prefer like the music and the TV awards, so like the Emmys and the Grammys. To me, that's just what I find more entertaining, and those are just more my niches when it comes to coverage and what I'm used to. So Oscars, while it's Hollywood's biggest night, for me it's like my third favorite biggest night, if anything. I will say didn't realize it started at 7 o'clock. It was so funny because like I think I said in the last episode, the OC is like my latest hyperfixation show. So I had that like double screen picture in picture with the red carpet, and then my TV had E, and then E goes off, and I'm like, okay, maybe they're throwing to ABC. So I just put on ABC in the background, and I look up, I'm like, what is Ariana doing there? So I didn't realize it started at 7. I'm like, oh, I had to like rewind like 2 minutes just to catch the performance. But like you said, a little long. Even though they did start at 7 o'clock, I think maybe that's why, because it's always so long that like people got to go to sleep, people got to go to work in the morning. It definitely did feel a little long, but overall, can't complain about the night.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of celebrities definitely were rushing to the after party. So I feel like that's even a reason for why they were like, we're gonna try to bump it up, like let's get this going. But yeah, but like we mentioned, we saw a lot of fashion moments. I mean, I feel like even today's outfit colors waves are kind of inspired by what we saw, the browns, the red. But Brittany, let's start off with getting some of your takes on some of your favorite looks that we saw yesterday.
Yeah, well, starting off with the brown that you and I are both wearing, we're clearly channeling our inner Andrew Garfield, who wore a beautiful brown suit. I love his clothes. I love his red carpet looks all the time. Like I just before we started recording, I don't think I've seen what he's been in, but I do like Andrew Garfield. I feel like once I see We Live in Time, I'm like, oh yeah. I haven't seen it yet because it's just such a sad movie, but once I see it, I got it. But other than him, Coleman Domingo, that red. Oh my goodness. And we had posted on our Instagram just the way that suit pops off. Insane. Um, let's see. We also have Ariana Grande in custom Scaparelli. She is insanely like I mean, gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I do hate the bun. Ariana, let down your hair. Like, please, like you have the beautiful blonde locks, let down your hair. But her dress was gorgeous and in conjunction with that Cynthia Erivo and Louis Vuitton. What I loved about both of their outfits is we didn't have the like the harsh pink and green in your face that we had last season. You know, last season method dressing was huge, and for those who don't know, it's basically when your red carpet looks are inspired by your character. So last year we saw that with Barbie and Margot Robbie, we saw that with Zendaya in Dune, and then of course last year's Oscars we saw the bubblegum pink and the emerald green in promotion of Wicked. But this year Ariana came in with a little bit of a champagne color, and although Cynthia Erivo's dress looks black, like when you first see it, it is like this very, very dark green. So I think that was a cool take on the colors and still doing the whole Glinda alpha, but without being so in your face. Some other standouts for me were Selena Gomez and Ralph Lauren, Demi Moore and Armani, Rachel Zegler in Dior, and Scarlett Johansson, who just gave me major Audrey Hepburn vibes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like the Audrey Hepburn reference, like even Ari with her hairstyles recently,
Mhm.
the bun up, like these updos that she has. I'm just like, are you all going for the same role? Cause like, who is gonna get casted at the end of the day? I'm curious to see.
And they love to do the whole, no, I'm not looking for it. Really?
Yeah,
Really?
cash that check, girl. Get the role, and if you gotta do it this way, then that's
Right.
the best way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I think that was one thing that a lot of our favorite picks were definitely like in line. I think
Mhm.
Demi Moore, like in that Armani Privé, like she knew this was her award season. Technically we all thought was gonna be her like night to get the biggest award of the night because this is just like it was trending this way. But yeah, but she came like a total star, made her moment, and like those color, like the metallic, the brightness. I just was like, she was giving me star, and she didn't need to go over the top with her hair. Like everything just kind of worked for me. Another person was, I mean, the color just in general, red. Like from you mentioned Coleman Domingo, we saw Zuri Hall, who was on the red carpet as well in her beautiful red gown. We saw Ray as well. So there was like so it just was all over. And this was I think they mentioned this year the red carpet too. They changed the color a little bit.
Mhm.
So therefore I feel like it was the best time to shine in these red moments. Otherwise sometimes it can kind of clash. Other people that I liked as well was John M. Chu, who got snubbed for Best Director, but he was in a tux, and liked that a lot of guys were playing with color or like even like these brown tones, just different than just a traditional black suit. Let me see, who else did I like? Jeremy Pope was also good. I don't want to butcher her name, but she won Best Supporting Actress last year, and she presented it this year. Devon Joy Randolph.
Oh, Divine Joy Randolph, yeah.
Yes, she looked so great in that number. Everything was kind of like ruched and kind of brought in, and it looked so good on her. And again, just made her moment. So those are some of my faves.
She looked absolutely beautiful. So yeah, with that we got our fashion. Let's talk performances, and the opener of the night was our Wicked performance. We said last episode we I think we need a whole episode just to talk about this one performance. I will say, Jonathan, I don't know if you were, I kind of was. If you were expecting a little bit more of like the Wicked and the pink and the green and the Glinda and Elf, I will say, I think for a minute I went through my mind, I'm like, how are they gonna make her green and then change her back? What are the logistics when it comes to that? But clearly they didn't. And Bowen Yang actually teased on the carpet that it was more of a tribute to the world of Oz
Mm.
than Wicked itself. So they opened up the show. Ariana did "Somewhere Over the Rainbow," which is Dorothy's song from The Wizard of Oz. Cynthia Erivo did "Home from the Wiz," and then they joined together for "Defying Gravity." And we just have to break down just each performance. First and foremost, Ariana's dress. Come on, with the
Yeah,
heel in the back.
the surprise. I'm like, okay,
Oh my
yes,
God, it
she's
was beautiful. For her performance again, she wore custom Schiaparelli and the heel in the back as a tribute to the red shoes, and she wore the red shoes. She looked stunning. I will say it was really, really sweet to see Ariana singing "Somewhere Over the Rainbow" because this was the last time she sang it. I think was in 2017, 2018, when she did "One Love Manchester," which unfortunately was when her concert was attacked. So that was the last time she sung the song, and if you've seen the video, it was very hard for her to get through the song. So it was a really, really sweet moment to see her get through the full song, and just this joy and this glow on her face. It was a really, really sweet moment. And then Miss Cynthia Erivo with "Home." Are you like, first, her dress also gorgeous, the flower embellishments, her nails were all Oz themed. Like, you just couldn't ask for a better performance.
yeah, and I think like you even mentioned it. just in general, the whole way they set up everything. So Ariana starting it, we getting like this kind of like cloud with rainbow coming in. Like I'm just like the tech team behind it was working overtime, and it showed, and it came out gorgeous. And then of course her vocals are out of this world. And then with Cynthia, I mean I love that dress. There was something beautiful about the all white look, but then having like these two floral moments in there. I don't know. I was just like it's, and then it. I don't know if you noticed, but the dress itself had like a little bit of a slit, and then it had tulle under it, and the tulle ombre from white to green in the bottom. And so my fiance and I were watching, and he's like, "Is she gonna do a reveal?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." I'm like, "This is just fashion, Brandon." Like, I don't know. She just knew how to incorporate the alphabet theme in there, but just it would just look very, very beautiful. And then, of course, when they came together, I mean, that was the moment that we had all been waiting for. But before we go there, too, I do want to say I think I am with you on the fact that I did think those two solo songs. I thought we were gonna get more of the Wicked medley, but I guess I see where they were paying a tribute, to just Oz in general. And I
Mhm.
hope that next year maybe we do get a little bit more of Wicked, which is what they're gonna be nominated for. We're praying, but that's we missed a big moment there. But yeah, but then they came together and they did give us some Wicked, and that moment in itself was amazing. I think especially you could just see the bond that they both built, not throughout just the movie, but this whole journey of press, the award season, and just that kind of friendship that they now have. And I think it's beautiful to see two divas who are like literally standalone artists but can come together to share the stage. And then even with Ari, when they were done singing together, like how Ari kissed Cynthia's hand and stepped away, and then the cameraman got that angle of like Ari in the back, just a proud sis to see Cynthia. It was just beautiful.
To the camera operator and the technical director who got that shot, a raise, all the accolades, everything, because that shot was so so gorgeous. And like you said, it was funny. I'm not gonna lie. The performance was beautiful. Don't get me wrong, but I was expecting Ariana to come down from the bubble. Like it's good to see me, isn't it? And no one mourns the wicked. But I do think maybe next award cycle, they will perform and we'll get more of a wicked medley. But with that, and we're gonna talk about this ad nauseum this whole episode. How do you bring them to open up this show with this performance, and then they go home with nothing?
You
You
know?
send them home with nothing. Like we're gonna get into the awards a little bit in a little bit, but it's just baffling to me that you open up this, and this is no shade to Amelia Perez, but I do think it's comical how they won original song, and this year because from what I understand the LA Fires they chose not to have every original song performed, which is why we also lacked the performances this year. We only had about three or four, whereas last year we had so many. But they chose not to have the original song nominees perform this year. So we didn't see Amelia Perez perform, which I think is really interesting. That you have like the cast of Wicked performing and they go home with nothing. Mind you, the original song winner doesn't even perform live, and it starts to make you wonder.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely something I feel like there might take into consideration moving forward, because I think even up until today, we're seeing now kind of the aftermath of this press run, and it being like how how much value did the music have if you didn't even have them perform? Like, how
Hmm.
much did you really care? And what were the politics behind the scenes that people probably are not privy to? That kind of goes into choosing these winners. Yeah, so I think same thing. I agreed. I was like, you gave them this whole moment, which people were asking for, and so I think you bought into it as like you were giving your viewers what they wanted, but then you didn't give them an award. No, ma'am.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to tell when it comes to the because I think the Oscars they're gonna garner a huge audience alone, right? So I don't think it's also fair to say like, well, this performance is what saved the ratings, but you can't act like this wasn't a ratings booster either. So again, to use them for that and to tease the and I think the Wicked performance was truly the performance that everybody was looking forward to and that we all heard about leading up to the night, and then to kind of, okay, you're gonna open the show and then we're not gonna see you for the rest of the night. It really is unfortunate. But with some of the other performances, we had the Bond performance, which was a little weird to me because we don't have a new movie coming out this year. So, I mean, it was a beautiful performance. We had Lisa, Doja Cat, and Ray perform. They did Live and Let Die, Diamonds Are Forever, and Skyfall, which I only know because Dancing with the Stars did a Bond night like 2 seasons ago.
Ooh.
I've never seen a Bond movie in my life. Um, but Margaret, so I will say I didn't realize it was a Bond performance because I saw Margaret Qualley and I'm like, oh, this is a Substance performance, and then they started with the Bond. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess not. Which I will say, I was very again, it's a little weird to have Margaret Qualley perform if she's not going to be the next Bond girl. So I'm not. Maybe that was a tease into it. She
Yeah.
did amazing. That whole Argentine Tango section, she killed it. I was like, okay, girl, like I see you, but it was also. I feel like just the cast of the performance was like, oh, okay, like it was interesting, you know?
Yeah, and obviously, like they started off prefacing, like, "Oh yeah, we it's like a celebration. You know, there are X amount of milestone years or whatnot, the Bond movies and tribute." But I agree with you. I was like, "Oh wait, are they announcing her as like the next Bond girl? Are they moving now and putting her as like the Bond, the lead? Like, I don't know. I was like, is this gonna come with an announcement? Because yeah, for her to start it, I was like, where is this gonna go? She did kill that performance, like you mentioned. Like I think it was just surprising, stunning. I was even searching after that. I was like, oh wait, what is her dance? Like, does she have a dance background?
Right.
And I saw that she was a trained ballet dancer growing up. So I mean, great moment to show it, and I guess on like a nice stage like that. But yeah, then when it went into the performances, I mean, I did enjoy them. I think Lisa's moment of coming down from the ceiling, I was like, well, you guys had budget for this, so why did Ariana not do this? Like in her bubble.
Right.
Um, but no, but I thought Lisa was, she's just a performer, and like
Mhm.
give her anything, I feel like she totally slays it. And then I think the other two coming out, like it just kept getting better and better and better. Ray, I think from what we saw last time at the award season, her vocals hands down are incredible. So I feel like for her to, again, a person to just rap that whole tribute, it was nice. And Doja Cat, I mean, I was excited to see her back on the like red carpet, and then to have a beautiful like moment with all these diamonds, crystal fantasy. I don't know. They sold it for me. Weird placement. Didn't understand it, but I was like, hey, let's go with let's go with the songs.
Right. I think 2 years ago, because I think like 2 years ago there was like the celebration of Bond, or I think it was like a certain anniversary that they were heading into. I don't know if it was like 2 years ago or the year before. So yeah, I was a kind of like, oh, okay. Again, beautiful performance, but it was just it felt out of place. But those are really the main two performances because, like we said, last year we had a lot of performances. We had like two or three from Barbie alone last year, and this year we had two main ones. We also had the In Memoriam tribute, which I know a lot of people, including myself, were sad to not see Michelle Trachtenberg, who just passed away this past week, included in the tribute. Now, she wasn't in the video, but they do a QR code at the bottom of the screen that says, you know, to see the full list. And they did put Michelle Trachtenberg's face and her headshot there. And I think it was, and I know a lot of times the Oscars, they, you know, for child stars that didn't necessarily have like a huge film career as an adult, they won't honor them. But I do think it was so important just to honor Michelle, and I mean, she had such just this impact on all of our childhoods with Ice Princess and Buffy and Gossip Girl. So I do think it was important to honor her for the night. So even though she wasn't in the video package, my guess is they had the package ready to go, you know, maybe last Sunday, and then the news broke and they're like, well, we'll put her in. So
Yeah.
that was the one unfortunate thing. But we also had the Quincy Jones tribute by Queen Latifah herself. That was amazing. It was so good. They did a song from The Wiz, and just the choreography and the lights and everything. It was just such a beautiful tribute.
Yeah, I mean, I think like what you're mentioning too. I think one, I love that then they go back and they have like this expanded list to obviously have
Mhm.
everyone included in the tribute. I am not gonna lie. By the time Queen Latifah was coming out, I was definitely checked out. So I saw it this morning as a good, you know, journalist doing our recap. I do think, I mean, Slay's always. It's so great to see her back doing what we all love and like just performing, entertaining. So I mean, yeah, I think the tribute in itself was a good moment. Um, but I'm like, give me more artists. I'm like, this is not the Video Music Awards, or, but you know, I was like, okay, great, love it.
Quick question: did you watch this on Hulu or on ABC?
I watched it on Hulu.
So okay, so you shut it off after a certain time, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So for those who watched on Hulu, so I guess because you shut it off early, The show ran a little later. I think it ran until 10:45, 11ish. So for those who don't who watched on Hulu, they cut the broadcast at 10:30. So they didn't get to see, I think it was best support or best actress, and I think it was best picture. There were two awards that were cut out at the end of the night that it just, yeah, the broadcast just cut out. So I was wondering if you watched that. I saw it on ABC, so I didn't even know until I went on social media and everybody's like, why did it cut out? And so I think this also just raises the conversation of, if you're going to be a streamer and you're going to show these live projects, live shows, you really have to get things in. I mean, we saw it when Netflix and the Tyson fight back in November, December. Now we're seeing it again with Hulu and in the Oscars. So I think for streamers, which I will say it was kind of funny because we're going to get into Adrian Brody's speech from The Brutalist, but he basically made a statement about like not relying on streamers, and it was just kind of ironic that they cut the broadcast after that, which we'll get into to his speech and why that took so long. But yeah, so if you saw on Hulu, unfortunately you did miss like the final moments of the night.
They're like, we did not get the full show, y'all. So
I know. I felt so bad. I'm like, wait, what? But I, again, award shows are always going to go over time.
yeah.
Always. So I think, if you're a streamer, just like a lot for that extra time.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm lucky that I also got the for a lot of our streamers too. When you do like the live version, sometimes you can record. So I guess it might have recorded like ABC like transmission, so we were able to get the full show.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were watching it on Hulu itself, then yeah, you probably missed out. But here we are to give you the full scoop of the most important parts of last night. And of course, when we talk about fashion, we talked about performances. Now, awards itself. Obviously,
Mm.
Brittany was working overtime and she did the tallies, y'all. She made it easier for us to look at some of the movies that won. And obviously, do you want to start off with Honora, I guess? Because they kind of sweep.
They did. Honora won the most awards of the night with five. Have you seen Honora or?
Okay, yes, I did.
Yeah.
I got to see it in its first, not I guess first run, but when my friends mentioned it to me randomly and was like, "Let's go." I didn't even know what it was about. Took Brandon to see it with our friends. I enjoyed it. I was like, "Yeah, sure, this was great." Like not my top five, but it was great. Brandon on the other side was like, "This was amazing." My other friends too, and I'm like, now looking back, I'm like, "Wow, you guys have good taste, I guess," because
Mhm.
it totally sweeped. And yeah, and I mean the categories that we have were what: best picture,
Yes.
best leading actress, original screenplay, editing, and then best director.
Yeah, I haven't seen Honora. It was one of the films I didn't see, and The Brutalist. Um, so yeah, I can't really talk much on the content of the film, but I what I can appreciate is the Oscars recognizing a truly independent film. They talked about just how small of a crew they had and a little budget that they had, and so I think it's really cool to see the Oscars, honoring
Yeah.
an independent film, which is very, very important. And that's something that Sean Baker did speak about, is the importance of independent film and independent filmmaking. So definitely a huge nod to that. Moving on with the second most awards was The Brutalist. They had 10 nominations and scored 3 awards in cinematography, original score, and Adrian Brody won Best Actor. Now, before we get into Adrian Brody's speech, which you didn't see, you didn't miss.
She was
Um,
like, "You missed out."
yeah, my almost not concern, but I think my gripe with like The Brutalist, and I think it was Amelia Perez that used AI in their films. Something I find just a little frustrating, right, is if we talk about the strikes that happened in 2023, what was one of the big components? Was the use of AI in film and in television and what that means for the future of this industry. So to now see projects that utilized AI being rewarded with Hollywood's top honors, it's a little frustrating and it's a little scary because it's like, okay, so what were these strikes for, right? What did everybody lose out on jobs and money and time for if now we're gonna not only utilize artificial intelligence, but we're gonna reward it as well? So I think that was something that is it's interesting, and we're gonna see within the next award cycle, what are other films. And just quickly, because I saw a lot of, well, what did Wicked use? There's a difference between CGI and AI. Let's just leave it at there is a difference between the two. Um, So yeah, so I think it's really interesting to see now because I know there was controversy when the nominations first came out, and I think the Academy had the films under review as well, and I guess they let it slide. So it's interesting now to see what are going to be the stipulations in place moving forward for AI usage.
Yeah, I think it's such a good point that you're bringing up as well, because I do agree. I think there was a big side of maybe like the actors and whatnot, and obviously saying the rights to AI, sometimes just using them to be the face of a campaign or whatnot, or how directors are using it. But it was interesting to see how maybe the actors are in a sense fighting for it as the creatives in that sense, but then maybe a director, the set design, is willing to use it for other aspects. So it is like how what is the playing field here, and like what is right and what is wrong in this industry. Uh, I personally did not watch The Brutalist. Just I just it wasn't in my list of movies I was like dying to watch. So I mean I can't speak in like criticizing it in a sense. But I was like, okay, pop off with your awards, your 3 awards and 10 nominations.
Yeah, and so moving into Adrian Brody's speech, he had the longest Oscar speech, which was 5 minutes and 31 seconds. And the problem with this is they started I'm assuming best actor and best actress and all of that they got more time to speak. But they started playing his music and he basically told them, "Hold on, like we've been here before." And they cut I'm like, "You're going to cut the music? Like
Like,
you
what?
really let that slide? Are you kidding me?" So he gave an entire speech. Honestly, I was tuned out after a certain part of the speech. I just
Yeah,
yeah.
there is this thing where there were a few people who last night I was just like, all right, like time to wrap it up. Like I think I should have like literally they won one of the animated awards. Uh
Oh, okay.
and I think you know who I'm talking to. It was two of them, and then the lady ended up just like freestyling and talking from her heart. Where I was like, "You go off," and then the guy next to her is like, "Oh no no no, we have notes," and then made it like he started to read the notes for
Yeah.
them, and I was just kind of like, this, and then it just took longer, and I was like, just when you have your moment, I get it though. You want to jot down, you do want to thank the people that you
Mhm.
want to obviously give a shout out to that have been a part of your journey, but I was just kind of like, now we're making it long-winded, but yeah, that's my caveat with the long speeches.
Yeah, and I think because of the Oscars and because they don't have like performances and other things like the music shows usually do, we have more time for the speeches, which and for the awards itself because there were so many awards given out last night compared to the Grammys where you had like 90 something that were given out and only 9 that were televised. So, it's a give and take with that. But with that, it is our biggest disappointment of the award show cycle. Again, leading the pack with 10 nominations, but only 2 wins was Our Beautiful Wicked. Let's just start with they won for best costume, which is Paul Tezwell, and he was the first black male costume designer to win that award in the 97-year history of the show.
Wild. I am like literally, yay, flowers are deserved, especially for the movie and everything. But I'm like, it just even shows you that, yes, we're making strides maybe with these creatives on camera, but behind the scenes, the people who just maybe put in, I would say, as much effort or sometimes working overtime before a movie even begins to
Right.
actually produce and start filming. Um, they are not getting the recognition, and that is not diversified enough. So I feel like I'm so happy he took that moment to mention it and to, obviously, yes, a shout out, but to also call it out so that people see, like, people who are winning these awards, we need more people to be honored, and we need the categories to be kind of changed up a little bit. But beautiful, beautiful. And I mean, but we're very well deserved
Mhm.
award, I would say.
I mean, the costumes in Wicked are gorgeous. I mean, all of Glinda's outfits, all of Elphaba's outfits. I mean, Glinda, the odds does with the hot pink and the gold. Like, I'm trying to find dupes of that dress everywhere. Like, let me know. My birthday's in 5 months. Let me know. But yeah, so well deserved. They also won for best production design, which again, beautiful. Like the film and the environment overall, just a beautiful, beautiful set. Now we got to get into them being snubbed. Like we have to get into it because I just now listen. We mentioned in the last episode that when it comes to the Oscars, if it's a two-part film, there's a good chance that they're going to sweep next year. But there's also the kind of jeopardy in the fact that Wicked Part 2 or the second act of the musical isn't as strong as the first. So that kind of leaves the door open for the nominations, right? I do think that it deserves more. I definitely think original score deserves 100% for an Oscar. I think overall just the film was like you this was a record breaking film, and I think sometimes we saw it with Barbie last year, but if we're going to be honest, I think Wicked just strides above Barbie. Loved Barbie, but Wicked, you just can't compare the two and its, its elements. But I do think that the Academy does not like to reward musicals and
Mhm.
also horror films, because if we look, The Substance was also snubbed heavily. And I think The Substance, they did win the category of makeup and hairstyling, which there was nobody else you give that award to, was The Substance, because they look scary as hell. Like it, there's nobody else you give that award to. But I think when it comes to Wicked, there were so many different categories that they could have won. And again, it's going back to the idea that you brought them here to open up the show, open up the performance, and then you snub them and they don't take anything home. So I really hope that for the next award cycle, they take home, and I don't want to say bigger awards because I think costuming and set design and editing, those are all just as important. I wish though that they take home awards for more front facing roles, for acting, for directing. I think to not even put John Chu in the directing category is
Yes.
great. I mean, they planted what was it, 9 million tulips for the film.
Yep, he
Again, they didn't
designed the
use it. They could have easily
train.
used AI for it, and they didn't.
Yeah, like the whole he designed the whole train. He made sure that obviously that they were, like we mentioned, obviously with the tulips, but that they actually had a place to play in and not
Mhm.
just CGI everything.
Yeah.
And then I think obviously we see it now with the relationship that he's built with the cast as well, of them giving him a shout out. So he was very much there the whole way and the whole time that they were doing this, and even the other people who won the award for costume, for set design as well, they were even talking about, giving him a shout out of just his guidance. Like that is the big person who leads the team or advocates for the team when maybe budgets are being cut. So I feel like he just played such a big role in it. Yeah, definitely wasn't even considered. And I hope that next run, that was one thing too that I was hearing was like, because of maybe them having a part two, that they'll be nominated again. So maybe that's when they'll start, collecting their awards. But then, like you mentioned, Act Two, in a sense, isn't the strongest. Who knows how it might be translated in movie wise? But I think that if the movie was good, he deserved to at least still be nominated. And with Cynthia and Ari too, I think they at least deserve to pick up an award, even if they were going to be nominated again or will be nominated again. I think definitely a big missed opportunity there.
I think it's the politics of, again, and we're going to get into this next, actually. It's the politics of, I think, the Academy rewarding more lifetime achievement performances than it actually, than they actually nominate for that particular performance, which quickly, they mentioned that Cynthia Erivo was going to, they mentioned that they were going to do something to honor her legacy in music and all of that. I thought it was going to come out as a separate segment. I guess it was Defying Gravity in the opening performance, but the way they marketed and the way they made it seem, they sounded like it was going to be maybe another award, another segment. So not confused on there, but I think it was interesting to see that. I guess it was the opening performance, but they did mention it. So
Wow, yeah, that is weird. I think again, yeah, just with the Oscars, it gets very murky because it is like, how much time do you dedicate to these? A lot of times, a movie is also moved by the music, and so I think it is kind of like what is the juggle between how much activity and things we give to just artists and their speeches, or actually the music sometimes that brings us. Obviously, like Wicked is a musical, so it is led by the music. But I think other films too, when they have the tracks and everything, or the promos for the artists that come up with the singles and stuff like that, sometimes that brings you to the box office. So it is a weird juggle
yeah.
there. Do you want to get into Emilia Perez, who, honey,
Yeah. So
they,
it's funny that you spoke about music. Let's talk original song.
girl, I don't know. It was weird to see though that Emilia had two songs for original
Nominated
song nominated within that category. I was like, all
and
right.
not one performed.
And no, and yet no one
Not one performed
performed.
live.
Yeah, I Sure, pop off. I guess the songwriting must have been great. The messaging, I guess, is there too. Like when the people went up to speak for the song, like they obviously spoke about, the women and obviously the representation and breaking barriers. So love it. Do I think the music itself was great? No. And that's just my honest hot take from that. And then obviously to then see Zoe win as well, which again, her being the first in her category,
Hmm.
amazing. But then, it just, we go back and forth. But give me more tea, Brittany, on your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
So it's funny when they won the award for El Mal. I know you saw the girl singing when she started accepting the award. I was like, get off the stage. We don't have time for this. Like when she started singing, I was like, all right, wrap it. I'm like, where's the music? Where like wrap it up. Let's go. Again, I Amelia Perez just wasn't a strong contender, and to see it sweeping the big awards was just an interesting take for me, you know? Um, so yeah, that was I will say it. I preferred it had been this song and not the whole song where they talk about like changing what is it penis to vagina and like that whole South Park song. So at least it was this one. But actress in a supporting role beating out Ariana Grande was Zoe Saldana, and I echo what a lot of people are saying on social media is that it's beautiful to see her as the first Dominican actress to win this award, but it's kind of hard because there's always going to be that like asterisk of like, well, this wasn't so well deserved, if that makes sense. A lot of people are not happy with this win, and I think she could have gotten a win for Avatar or some of her other projects, but I don't think that this it's what I don't think that this was the project she should have won the award for. So it's kind of sad to see that it's like you're breaking barriers and you're making history, but was this really the award? Like, was this really the project that should have been rewarded? And a lot of people share the same sentiments, and her speech was beautiful, but unfortunately she then went to the press room to stick her foot in her mouth because when she was asked about how a lot of people of Mexican culture, and we mentioned this before, they're not so happy with the portrayal of the film. Now the film director himself said that he chose to shoot in Mexico because he wanted that Mexican culture behind it. He wanted that to be an element of the film. Though later on when they asked him, did you do research, he basically said no. Now, Zoe Saldana, and I have the quote right here, they asked her again in the press box, and she said, quote, "First of all, I'm very, very sorry that many Mexicans felt offended. That was never our intention. We spoke from a place of love. I don't share your opinion. For me, the heart of this movie was not Mexico. We were making a film about friendship. We were making a film about four women." I, yeah, I think first and foremost, the I'm sorry you felt offended, not I'm sorry I might have offended you. I think that's first, we have to start taking accountability for things, right? And again, it's hard for her to say, and it's hard to hear her say this film wasn't about Mexico when the director himself said he wanted that to basically be an element of the film. And again, we there were just so many problematic issues with this particular film that to watch it sweep all these awards is again confusing. But I know you also had mentioned about the press room debacle, so
Yeah, no, I mean, everything you mentioned, I think definitely is part of what I was seeing, even people critique and just be offended by. I think another point too is that her saying that in the press box, the movie is supposed to be geared about the struggles that women in Mexico go through and like some of the policies and stuff like that through the lens of these four women. So I think the movie already is somewhat centered around Mexico and it has the policies and all these other things in there. So I think for that, I think that in general was maybe her not, like, she could have been a little bit more better with that in a sense, or
sure.
just and I agree. I think something that did stand out to me in that even quote though, and what she was speaking about, was that the intention was good. They were trying to do good, and for Zoe, it was kind of like a coming back home kind of role where she got to do all her loves in one, which was the acting, the singing, the dancing. She is more than just an actress, and I know she's talked about it many times. Like this was the role that like felt more special to her,
Mhm.
or one of the more special roles out of her journey that she's had in her career. Uh, But I agree. I think that while the intention was there, it didn't meet the impact. And unfortunately, they fell short of that, whether it was a lack of research. I think the lack of also the Mexican incorporation into this, whether it was behind the scenes, in front of camera, the talent as well. Like, I don't know. I just think a lot of pieces were missing that maybe didn't make it as authentic. And even with the director, I think he is like French or something. And not that a French person can't take on a Latino based movie or Latinx movie, but I think then he needed to have someone who he can consult with who is literally in the community. Uh, and I think another thing with that too, hold on, my computer is talking again. So I think my last point to that too, I think is something that I saw this morning as they were kind of recapping all these like speeches and stuff like that, was that there was a lack of acknowledging trans visibility
Mhm.
in these award speeches. And I think for the movie being led by someone who is trans, and I know there's obviously been drama about what was tweeted, and they even made a joke about it, which I was like
Crazy.
embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think regardless of the drama, like she still did her work there. She still put her time to be there and put out a product that was nominated. And I think the least they could have done as well is acknowledge that the goal of the movie, or the person who kind of led the movie as well, was a trans actress. So that should have been celebrated.
And especially with the times that we're in, I do think that that's something that should have been emphasized a lot more. Again, you're going to make this movie and you're going to capitalize on certain communities and cultures. It's only right that when you're now rewarded for them, again, with Hollywood's biggest honor, that you then pay that forward and at least thank the people, that you based this film off of. So I will say, kind of glad they didn't win Best Picture because of this. I do think had they won Best Picture, it would have just like solidified everything. And I think again, just rewarding just improper behavior. It is very disappointing to see Zoe Saldana, and it's fun because I saw on social media people were like she got that award in her hand and the truth came out. And so again, very sad, very disappointing to see that. Again, she's a super talented actress. She deserved an Oscar. This was just not the project that she deserved it for. So um yeah, also winning Best Supporting Actor was Kieran Culkin, which anybody who's big on like child stars from the 90s, that was really cool. To also see him take that home. And yeah, and then like we mentioned, makeup and hairstyling went to The Substance, which we actually have to talk about that. And Demi Moore. First of all, Margaret Qualley not even being nominated.
Yeah.
She was amazing. Both actresses were amazing. Both Demi and Margaret were amazing in the film. I watched it, and Margaret was amazing. And so to see her not even get a nomination for this was really sad. And then Demi Moore, again, like you mentioned earlier in the episode, it was something that we thought we were going like the pattern from all the award shows she was sweeping, and then she lost here to Mikey Madison for Honora. And I think it almost just solidified the point, and the point that the movie tried to make, which was Hollywood stops celebrating you after a certain age, and after a certain age, it's a lot harder for women. So I do think that it was disappointing, but also just super ironic to see that the whole point of the film was what happens when you age out of Hollywood, and then here we see she's sweeping. It's the Oscars, and she doesn't win.
Yeah, you bring up such a good point about age as well. Something I was seeing again just this morning in like interviews and stuff, and that was coming up is that they are. I mean, it's been years now that they've been kind of alluding to this, that yes, women in a sense are judged. Their age is a big part that is considered when it comes to these awards, right?
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to the Oscars, because they say they don't like to award older women. Like, let's say last year it was Emma Stone who won the award for portraying a very young, I think young woman in her, like in this movie. I don't know exactly the movie, so don't quote me on it. But again, she did win last year. And then they were saying this year, obviously, we have Mickey Madison who wins again, another younger actress. But it's the reverse when it comes to the men. Now, Oscars loves to reward older men. They think obviously it's a sign of them, just their legacy in the industry. Like a Timothy Chalamet, who is very young, got snubbed, is what they're calling it, for the Oscars. You know, they think he should have at least won. Again, because he was kind of this trend, or in a sense, or he was just, had a good momentum.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it was so crazy to hear that of how this is kind of known, but no one's really doing anything about it. And I do think Mickey Madison amazing. I think she has a long career ahead of her as
Mhm.
well. But I thought, yeah, Demi was definitely lining up to win this award, and so I feel like she even realized a little bit like, oh wait, I'm not winning something here.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to see how these kind of like rules or things kind of go on in Hollywood. But nonetheless, they both were amazing, and everyone in that category was amazing. So, and she had a great run too. So I hope that even this big snub, obviously, it's one of the biggest awards when it comes to acting that everyone wants to win.
Mhm.
But I hope she's proud of the run that she's had, regardless anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, she looks beautiful. So she looks stunning. But something I want to bring up about Timothy Chalamet, right? And this kind of contrast between Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet is, I don't know if you saw his when he won the SAG. I think it was the SAG award that he won, or it might have been another award. That in his speech he talked about like, I want to be one of the greats. He acknowledged Viola Davis and said, I want to be one of you. I want to be one of the greats one day. And for some, I think it was on The View too, which their opinions are just always interesting. And they said like, that that's very arrogant of him to say, but I didn't see it that way. I saw it as like, hey, I'm not there yet, but I want to get there one day. And that's essentially what he said. So why does that get flagged as arrogant? And then you have Adrian Brody, who just talked on and on and on for 5.5 minutes. They didn't announce Best Actress or Best Picture yet. So you just took away time from somebody else's award just because, and he said, like, we've done this before, just stop the music for a minute. And then they stopped the music and they let him go on for like another minute and a half, but that's being praised. So I'm just so confused again. And I think it's interesting, like you said, how it's the reversal where the older men are being celebrated. So maybe it's the sense that like Adrian Brody, who's older, he's being celebrated, and again for this behavior. But Timothy Chalamet, because he's younger, they see it as like a little arrogant kid.
Yeah, and I'm like, even if I was to get up there, like I'm like, yeah, manifest what you want. Like
Right.
literally, this is the moment to kind of share your journey. And if, in his journey, his truth is like he literally, that's who he admires. He's calling them out in a nice way, just paying respects to them. And I'm like, I didn't see it as arrogant as well. I'm like,
No.
this is your moment to shine. I'll be like, and I also Tyler Perry, I want that gig as well. Audrey Hepburn
Right.
role, I'm coming for it.
Right, like you start to manifest it. So that was an interesting take of the night. So we went through performances, fashion, awards. Were there any other takes or anything that you like disliked, whatever?
Um, I think there were. So I'm always very curious about who's being seated in the front seat, front
Okay.
row. And I was like, Miss Kylie Jenner was in the front row with her man. I was like, Kardashians, Jenners are invading the Oscars. So I thought that was really cool. Very, very random.
Something I'd love to see, and I really, really hope that after this year, we're going to see more of it, is again, they brought out the LA Fire Department to thank them for the wildfires. It's bittersweet because they're getting their recognition, but it's also bitter because next year this is not going to happen. There's this feeling that everything's just going to go back to normal. I really, really hope that moving forward, award shows do take the time to maybe select a certain organization or something to honor with the awards and the donations and everything. I really hope that that's something that continues. And you and I, that we both work in local news, we see it all the time that you celebrate somebody while the cameras are there, and you celebrate, you give them their flowers, and then once the cameras go away, it's like, okay, well, we'll see you
On to the
when there's
next.
another tragedy. So I really do hope that they continue to honor somebody, whether it's an organization, or just a group. I really do hope that they continue with that philanthropy side.
Yeah, and I think another thing too that stood out to me was Mickey Madison's speech
Hmm.
when she won her award. I think she's been very open that the experience of doing Honora was very life changing to her. Obviously, her career at that, but she did shout out even like the sex workers and being and saying that like because of the impact that the film in itself and just that creating it had on her, like she's gonna continue to support them and always kind of like shout them out. And so I thought that was just something again, someone who was very well deserved. I feel like for just it was more than for her just to create this movie is she took something out of that and she's kind of using it as she's kind of growing in this industry now and advocating for the community and I know a lot of people were happy because the movie was also shot in Brooklyn, so there was a lot of like Brooklyn history in there as well. So yeah, that was another moment that was one of my faves, her speech itself.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like we forgot to mention the host, Conan O'Brien. He did a great job. Didn't piss anybody off. So I feel like that. I feel like that's your job when you host these things is like, don't piss anybody. They might have pissed off Carla, but that
Yeah,
joke was crazy. I'm not gonna lie. I like her. I looked up. I said, "Oh shit."
and
I said,
they zoomed in
"Oh."
on her. I was like, ooh, when he talked about the tweets and the PR people, I was like, ooh, y'all so shady. But
Is he wrong though?
he's not wrong. He was like, just tweet, just say, I'm Jimmy Fallon if you tweet about the
Yes.
Oscars.
Oh my
um,
God. Somebody on Twitter was like that she's looking for a slur for redheads now. I'm like, oh my God.
oh my god, I
But
can't.
it was, I think overall, pretty decent night. It's the Oscars, biggest night in
Yeah.
Hollywood. Of course, there was a Vanity Fair party afterwards. Were there any looks that you've seen off the top of your head?
Ooh, not anyone that I'm like, wow, they killed it, but just people who I was seeing was like a Kiki Palmer, Vanessa
Mhm.
Hudgens. Like I love seeing these familiar faces back on the carpet.
Yeah.
I know Vanessa, like that was her last appearance on Vanity Fair last year when she was pregnant. So like that was her
Hmm.
red carpet, her last red carpet before she gave birth. So it was nice to see her back on the carpet again. So yeah, it's been cute to see all the looks now. But yeah, I'm like Vanity Fair, we're here too.
Yes, please. Vanessa was my favorite too. I actually saw a picture of her and Olivia Rodrigo together. I'm like, that is so, so cute. Like, we have like the two Gabriellas.
Yeah,
Somebody captioned it as the Substance 2025. I was like, you know what?
you know,
Yeah.
maybe that'll be an Oscars prediction for next year.
Right. Yeah. So, speaking of that, what are your thoughts for next year?
For next year, obviously, Wicked Part
Hmm.
2, Wicked for Good. I want to see. I am very curious to see how they're gonna roll out the nominations. Like, are we still gonna see Cynthia going for lead and Ariana going for supporting, or are we gonna switch it up this next round? Uh, Aside from that, I mean, there's not any, I would say, any movies top of mind that I'm like, wow, let's see.
Hmm.
I think another part is, like you mentioned, the philanthropy side. I hope that they do continue it and kind of focus on whatever is going central to like what's happening, main topics or focus or whatnot, that they do highlight it during the ceremony. That they bring in a little bit more music and the music from the actual movie so that it does
Yeah.
celebrate the movies that are nominated and give my girl Cynthia and Ariana an award. Just that's my prediction, an award for them. How about you?
Please. Definitely that. I like that you mentioned if they're gonna switch because I do know that in the second act of Wicked, through the first one, Elphaba is showcased a little bit more and it's more through her lens. And I think in the second act they do switch and it's more on Glinda. So I do wonder actually if they're gonna switch that as well in the award cycle, which I think now you also gamble with the potential of winning. I do think Cynthia could take home for Best Supporting if she didn't win Best Actress, but um, in terms of Best Actress, given that that's such I guess just such like a stacked category always. Now, not so sure on how Ariana's gonna do, but we do have to wait to see. I know a lot of people thought we were gonna get teasers that night, but if you look on social media, they're leaking some photos from the new one. No spoilers, but yeah, there. So we should be expecting a For Good teaser sometime soon. So definitely expect that. I really, really hope that we see a Wicked medley. Like that, I was so looking forward to hearing No One Mourns the Wicked, but I really hope that we hear that next year. I hope to see John Chu in the director category. He deserves it so, so much. And I hope that next year we stop rewarding films with AI.
Ooh, she said it. Hot take.
No, seriously. Like we just went on like they were just on strike for it. Like
Like,
why do we need it, you know?
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's really my predictions for next year. Like you said, there's nothing really out now at the moment that we're gonna see, but maybe towards the latter part of the year we can come back and do some more predictions and see what films are gonna be out.
Yes, and we promise to watch most of these movies. I'm sorry, it's just a lot of movies nominated in these categories, from animated
Hmm.
to the obviously like real people version ones, but it's a lot. So I'm like, and
Right.
sometimes I don't want to follow the crowd and watch some of these movies that I'm like, it just does not look interesting. So,
I
but
do recommend Conclave as some as somebody who grew up Catholic. Yo, that movie, it's basically like if you put like Catholic priests in the settings of like Real Housewives.
oh wait, this is my kind of movie then. Wait, what?
Yeah, oh my God, it's so good. So I would definitely see Conclave. Did you see this The Substance?
I did not see The Substance. I also sort of kind of started Amelia, so I'm gonna try to finish that one. I just immediately was like, nah, turned off.
No.
But I'm gonna try to watch that. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
other, I'm like, let me look through this list. Wicked. There you go. Wicked and
Right.
Nora, the
Saw it
two
three
most
times.
important ones.
Yeah, I would definitely watch The Substance. It's a lot of body, and just for anybody listening, it's a lot of like body horror. So if you're somebody like me, like certain sounds that sometimes like freak you out, like if you're watching like a horror movie or like just like a yeah, like those body horror, body gore movies, it's a lot of sound. So just like be aware. Like don't watch it while eating.
Ooh, noted,
Yeah.
and will not be doing.
Yeah, but with that, that wraps up our first Oscars recap.
Whoop whoop, we did it. We survived. We also survived award season. So I know obviously as we transition out of award season, there's so much pop culture news still going on. So we will keep you in the loop of that. And I know we're even planning some upcoming episodes. So we're gonna get on the schedule. We will promise. So keep staying tuned.
Yes, definitely. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.